Hi, my name is Humboldt Harvey, and this is my take on Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. Now, before we get into it, I want you to know there are a lot of ways in which you can view the steps of AA. This is just my perspective from 40 years of sobriety. I hope it helps you out along your path. And remember, take what you can use and leave the rest. There's plenty here to go around. You know, the steps to me are kind of like a clock. All their parts need to work in unison in order for the person to function as sort of a spiritual regulator of their own life. If you take them seriously and have a right understanding of them, you end up wanting to do them correctly. Happiness will be your reward, and letting go becomes a joyful way of life. The tools in our little circus are free, but man, the price of admission's a whopper, isn't it? A quick note about sponsorship. Get yourself one. Trying to do these steps by yourself is relying on the same thinking that made your life unmanageable in the first place. It reminds me of that old joke about the famous last words of every redneck. Here, hold my beer. Watch this. Doesn't turn out too well. Recently, I read an interpretation of the first step from a leading institution. How can I put this delicately? I believe they're a tad misguided in their interpretation of this step. Now, that's not to say they didn't get the first part right, but I've found that a lot of people fail to see the first step's deeper meaning. Now, the first thing this author said was about the word we. He figured it ought to be left behind as a relic of the past. Now, I could see the self-empowerment theory that people go on about playing out in his thinking, but, well, it's just plain wrong. The purpose of our fellowship and its entire foundation is based on one alcoholic identifying and helping another. All of our ideas about service, unity, and recovery are embodied in the idea of we, us that is. We takes the terminal uniqueness out of our lonely lives as active drinkers. We can, for the first time, feel we are a part of something, that we are not alone. The we gives us the ability to walk past the shame and begin to see ourselves as one of the many, and be able to reach beyond our fevered brain's confusion and become part of a fellowship of recovery. Once you've admitted that you're kind of nuts in this way, hanging out with the other nuts in the bin isn't really that bad of an idea. It's definitely an entertaining way of life. I can guarantee you that. To remove the word we would kind of destroy our fellowship, so it's a pretty bad idea for us. Driven self-empowerment is not a basis for sobriety, at least in my way of thinking, and I've never seen it really work. Not to say I haven't encountered some dry drunks in my life. God knows I have. But me? Well, I'd rather trudge the road to happiness and mental health, personally. Okay, but what about this powerless thing? What the heck does it mean, anyway? If you read or listen to First Step in a big book, or hopefully you are smart enough and sober enough to listen or read the first step in our 12 Steps in 12 Traditions book, you saw that it explained the first two aspects of powerlessness. One, that you're powerless over your obsession to drink. That means that whether you are a binge drinker, a periodic drinker, or a daily drinker, you've lost the ability to stop thinking about drinking. Did you catch that? You've lost the ability to stop thinking about drinking. The craving to drink and the endless battle of wits to rationalize drinking is a never-ending dance for us, and a never-ending dance in your mind. To anyone but another alcoholic, this is playing cuckoo. I mean, who in the world thinks that petting a dog that bites every time is sane? Would you pet it if you saw that? I hope not. Most people, after having a terrible experience, or a bunch of them, with spirits, would never drink again. They'd put it a long ways out of their minds. Plain and simple, only alcoholics think about drinking or not all the time. That's the nature of powerlessness before we drink. Once the first drink settles in, the irresistible compulsion sets in, and off we go into the wild, bruised yonder. So to be powerless over our obsessive thinking about alcohol, and then powerless to stop drinking once we start, is the nature of powerless over alcohol. That's pretty well explained. It doesn't require a lot of extra palaver on my part for you to get it. It's not like at this point it's curable by self-will alone. You probably noticed that, or you wouldn't be listening to this. You can just choose not to drink or think about it again and fix your life's problem in the next 10 minutes, and then you dust off your hands. Well, that ain't going to happen. You would have if you could have. And therein is the acid test for alcoholism. Obviously, this makes managing our lives pretty undoable in any consistent way. Not to mention the effects of alcohol and the desire for it tend to interfere with your plans, to say the least. And as you spin down the drain pipe of deteriorating health and well-being in all your affairs, this all is already painfully obvious to you. And for the most part, you might think, okay, I admit I'm beat, so that about sums it up. Let's move on. Not so fast. There's a deeper way of understanding the first step that I've found to be instrumental in maintaining my sobriety, and so many others to whom I've taught it to. Back to our original pal, who postulated that we no longer need we in our first step. He went on to say that we as humans are not powerless in a general way, only over alcohol. That's just plain wrong, and I'll show you why. It is true that you do have some power, and that right now you could pick up your foot, for instance, if you cared to. Go ahead. I'll wait. But that doesn't change the fact we're powerless over our lives. Let's take a look. Firstly, we don't have any control over people, places, and things, no matter how much you fool yourself into thinking you do. It's true that most things are relatively predictable. The milk in the fridge you bought yesterday is probably humming along cold and still fresh down there. But honestly, you have no way of guaranteeing that everything you want to happen will. In the big picture, our plans are always frustrated and adapting because we just can't control the outcome of everyday life moment by moment. You all know this. The truth be told, we're not in control. We're powerless over anything but our immediate selves. We can take all the actions we want, but there's no guarantee of anything coming out the way we'd like it to. Okay, you say, I'll give you that one, Harvey. But I'm still in control of me, so I do have personal power within myself to accept alcohol. No, you don't. Well, here's why. You do not have control over your emotional and mental responses to the world, and that is why you drank. Switching chairs on the Titanic is not really a correct use of power in that you can make your life manageable all of a sudden. Not going to happen. Alcohol was your coping mechanism for your inability to react to the world correctly. Eventually, our emotions and compounded effects of our life decisions led us back to the need to escape or enhance our feelings, and alcohol provided that relief. We self-medicated for the effects of booze. Everyone drinks for the effects, but we drank because we could not stand our emotional state. And this is our real obsession. You as an alcoholic drank because you could not handle the way the world made you feel. As the book so eloquently pointed out, fear was the basis of all this in our lives. Perhaps it was to run from past trauma, as most alcoholics seem to have experienced that. But whatever the reason, we're powerless over our own emotional response to the world, and this made us powerless over alcohol, and it colored our lives' decision-making, making life unmanageable. In effect, our cycle of behavior had broken our rudder, making us powerless to steer our own minds. So what the first step is really saying is you were powerless over your emotional response to the world, and that made you drink so you could cope. And all those mismanaged emotions resulted in warped thinking and action. And that's why you are powerless in a general sense. Not just over alcohol. Alcohol is but a symptom of our disease. Simply put, we were caught in such a trap we can't consistently respond correctly due to our corrupted thinking to most situations in life. We really don't know how. And most of us admit that we felt like we were faking life and unable to accept life on life's terms. Luckily, we still have the power to admit defeat over our thinking, emotional response to the world, and alcohol, powerlessness. And we have the power to see our lives have become unmanageable because we are alcoholics. As a departed and beloved old alky in AA, Duffy used to say, I too am an alcoholic. And that admission became his first step on the road to freedom. Hopefully you'll throw open the scary door to which a new life begins for you as it has for millions of others. It worked for me. So until next time, this is Harvey wishing you happy trails.